diving deep into the Appalachian Mountains, one of the most active and haunted regions in the United States. The paranormal in Appalachia is far more real than most people realize. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
Yes, if you're from Appalachia, you probably say Appalachia. If you're not from Appalachia, you probably say Appalachia. I only ran into one Midwesterner in my entire lifetime when I was telling them about where I'm from. I'm from Appalachia. They said it's pronounced Appalachia. I said, oh, bless you.
So I'm not going to say what it was, but I'm not going to say what it ain't. So I used to work for this company that I would be on call a lot. We'd get calls at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. If something broke, we'd have to go out there and fix it. So I got a call probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was for some down power poles. And I had drove all the way up there. I got there about 4 o'clock in the morning. I was up there in the boonies, right? I was up there in the sticks. So I get going up there, and there is no lights whatsoever on this little road that I was on. I mean, no houses, street lights, nothing. So I finally pull up to the house that I was getting at, and it was pitch black. And I parked the truck, I got out, and I started doing what I was doing, and I heard, help! And I kind of froze, because I was like, what? Like, that sounded like a person. And all I had was a little headlamp at the time, so I couldn't see nothing for probably 10, 15 feet in front of me. So I went back to the truck and got a flashlight, and I started shining it around. And about 300 feet up this driveway, there's a little gravel driveway, 300 feet up this driveway, I seen a house. It was a little old house, but a tree fell right on it. And I was like, there's no way. And I started looking around, and I kind of turned my head away from the house, and I heard help again. So I was thinking, okay, there is a lady in this house. Tree done fell on it. She needs my help. Okay. I'm going. So if you know anything about me, is I will help anybody. If you cold, I'll give you my hoodie. If you got flashers on the side of the road, I'll pull over and ask what you need. 'Cause 9 times out of 10, I could probably help you in some way. Now I carry everything from tools to toolies in here, so I can help 9 times out of 10. So I started booking it up this driveway, 'cause I'm thinking time is of the essence. I am running up this driveway, and I got my flashlight and it's pointed on it, and I'm running. All of a sudden I heard, hey! And I stopped on a dime, dead in my tracks, 'cause that hey sounded a little bit closer than what that house was, and it just started to click with me. There ain't no lady in that house. So I stopped dead in my tracks, and I never turned my back towards the danger. I started backpedaling. I used to play cornerback back in high school. I started backpedaling down that whole driveway. It still makes the back of my neck stand, or the hairs on the back of my neck stand up whenever I talk about it. It was a whole nother thing, but I got down at the bottom of the driveway and finished my job, and I got out of Dodge. I didn't hear nothing the rest of the night, but I still got out of there. And still to this day, it freaks me out, but I don't know what it was, but I know what it ain't. It wasn't a person.
So I used to do house calls in really rural areas, like Appalachian Mountain area, to areas that were so desolate that some of my patients didn't even have running water, sometimes didn't have electricity, legit outhouse living. A lot of them grew their own food, hunted, didn't have cell phones. I would be in areas where GPS wouldn't work, so I'd be navigating to their house with the use of a map and the compass in my car. Gravel roads, finding these people and providing the healthcare that I was paid to provide. So like I said, this was many years ago. The company that I worked for doesn't exist anymore. But I actually remembered this story while I was driving today, and it was just so this one time I pull onto this patient's property. There is no driveway. It's essentially just grass. This person appears to have been driving on the same strip of land because there's 2 tire marks leading up to a small house with a big porch. And the porch is piled high with things like couches. There was an elliptical. We had an old TV. There were shelves of books and bits and bobs stacked high. There were cars on the property. There were wagons, bicycles on the property. You know what I mean? It was just a very large cluster of things all over the entire property that led up to the front door. I walk into the patient's house, and it is essentially just the same, just as you would expect. And unfortunately, there seemed to be perhaps some hygiene issues in the home because there was a bit of an odor, but that's not unusual, and we're not here to judge. So I go in and I start my visit. Now, from the minute I walk into the house, this person has one concern and one concern only, and it is that they need a refill on their pain medications, which, of course, pain is very important and very much needs to be addressed. However, after looking through my paperwork and looking to see when this was last filled, and taking a look at the history, which I was aware of before I saw this person, I was unable to do that for various different reasons. Of which I'm not going to explore. I'm just going to say that while I understand that pain absolutely has to be treated seriously, and I always take it at face value, this was a situation where I was not able to provide what they wanted. Before we get into any other part of this visit, this person is heated. They are mad. They are yelling, and they tell me that they are going to pray a black rosary. Now, I was raised Byzantine Catholic, right? And that's just about the angriest Catholic you can get. So I'd assume if there was something like a black rosary, I probably would have heard of it, right? I've never heard of such a thing. This person makes it very clear that they have no intention of seeing me anymore because I couldn't provide them the service that they wanted. And I very respectfully said, okay. And they basically told me that I had it coming because they were going to pray this black rosary, and kind of elaborated in not so many words that everything was just going to go to shit, which I didn't think much of because I understand why they're upset. And if I were in their situation, perhaps I would be upset as well. However, there are laws and I have to follow them. So like I said, when I pulled my X3 onto the property, I drove over the tire treads that were already there onto the back of the property next to the house. And beyond where you park, there's a little mound of dirt. And then it's basically just a little cliff down into a ravine with a bunch of trees. And then it goes down into nothing. It's looks like the side of a mountain. I put my things in the car. I get into the car. I put my SUV, my little manual transmission SUV, into reverse, which is very clear, reverse, okay? It's to the left and up, okay? And my car goes flying forwards. I almost launched myself over this cliff. I had been driving this vehicle for years. It had almost 250,000 miles on it, okay? And it was a manual transmission, all right? So I don't know if anyone here drives a manual, but you have to go far to the left and up to get this thing to go into reverse, which is exactly what I did. First gear, completely different. I almost flew over the size of this ravine. And I'm thinking to myself, obviously it must have been a mistake. Maybe I pulled into the wrong gear. I don't know. Just benefit of the doubt. I'm a little shaken. This person just screamed at me. So I pull out of the driveway. Once I collect myself, I start driving down the road. Now, these back roads are so desolate that sometimes I would not see anybody on them for the entire time I was working during the day because they're just back roads, and it's usually just through traffic to the people who live there. But I'm on my way back into the hotel where I stayed while I was traveling to see these patients, and in the middle of nowhere on a small little back road, I get pulled over because I have a headlight out, and they claimed I was speeding, but I don't think I was. At any rate, I'm in the middle of nowhere. This cop comes up to my car. He gives me a ticket. I'm so frustrated and I'm so upset that I was in tears, and I think I actually ended up making the new police officer cry. By the way, if you remember me and you remember this, I'm sorry I made you cry. I get back to my hotel room, I pack up all my things, I drive home and get an email to find that my PTO request that I made for the following day was not processed, which I did not notice. So I actually had to drive 4 hours back to where I was so that I could be in town to see patients the next day when I wasn't even supposed to be working. I have never heard of a black rosary before in my life, like I said. But when I tell you absolutely everything went to for a short period of time after that experience, I am not joking. Has anybody heard of this before? Eventually, things leveled out, right? But I still could not shake the feeling of almost being launched over a cliff when my car was very clearly in reverse, but it decided to launch forwards. I actually ended up selling the X3, the manual transmission. I ended up selling it. That was horrendous. And I actually think I might actually have a video because I was so rattled. I think I might actually have a video.
Turn of events today. I thought I was reversing back into the road, but in reality, I actually had my car in first gear and almost launched myself off of a cliff. So that's been great for me.
I don't know what y'all believe, but I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and you learn from a very young age to just not ask questions. I was fresh out of high school. My grandmother was sick, and I decided to move in with her to take care of her. She had a 2-story house. Her bedroom was upstairs. My bedroom was downstairs. And I had a baby monitor in her room that I could hear if she needed something because she was bedridden. And sometimes she would, holler for a Coke or whatever. This one particular night, and these things always only happen at nighttime in Appalachia, I hear the front door is basically in the middle of the house. Like, here's the house. Her bedroom's here. My bedroom's here. The front door would have been right here in the middle. I hear, and it's a very heavy wood door. I hear that front door close. I didn't hear it open. I heard it close. And it was a very distinct sound. And I was like, what the heck? Nobody should be here. That door was locked. And then I hear footsteps, like very heavy footsteps, like a big old guy in boots or something, walking very fast. Ugh, making me tear up thinking about it because it was so scary. Walking very fast down the hallway to my grandmother's room. So he walked in here and I could hear boom, 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 like fast, and then stop right beside her bed. And I literally have chills right now talking about this. And I was downstairs. So I'm hearing this in the house. I don't hear anything on the baby monitor. And I'm like looking up at the ceiling because I'm like, what is happening? And then the footsteps stop right beside her bed, which is directly over my head. And I'm looking, and I'm terrified because I don't have any way to protect myself, and somebody's beside my grandmother, and it's at nighttime. Well, my grandmother, who I thought was asleep, said, I've been waiting for you. Oh my God. When that happened, y'all, this basement scared me when I was a kid. I would run out of that basement, like when you turn the lights off, because it was so scary to me. It's a big basement and pitch black. And that night, that was one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. There were other really scary things in that house that happened, but that night, and when folks are getting closer to passing on, I think that they have a sense that you don't have, like right now, most people, and the veil just gets a little thinner for them. And so I don't know who she saw or what she saw, but I heard it and she saw it, and she never spoke about it to me. And that's just one of the things that happened in Appalachia.
So when I was a sophomore in high school, my mom was dropping me off to school one morning, and she stopped the car and was like, hey, can I talk to you about something really quick? And this was very out of character for my mom because she never really discussed super serious stuff with us like that. And the look on her face was the most serious I've probably ever seen her in my entire life. So I'm like, yeah, sure. What's going on? And she's like, I'm not telling you this to freak you out, but I just need to tell you something that happened to me this week. And my mom notoriously was like a gas station girly. She always went by the gas station after she got off of work. And this is usually pretty late at night. It was normally around like 11:30, midnight. She always went to the gas station, the same gas station, after work, and got scratch-off tickets and got like a Coca-Cola to drink before she came home. So she told me that when she had stopped at the gas station a couple of nights ago, the lady behind the counter, who was like fairly new, not super new, but my mom didn't know her very well, she was like, hey, I noticed the last couple of nights that you've come in here, the lady that's normally with you hasn't been with you. I was just wondering if she was okay. And my mom was like, what lady? What lady that comes in with me? And the clerk is like, she sometimes sits in the passenger seat of your car when you come in, but sometimes she comes in with you. She never really says anything. She seems like an older lady. So I was just wondering if she was okay or if something had happened. And my mom was like, what does she look like? And the clerk tells her, yeah, she has kind of like poofy white hair. She's kind of tall. She's definitely elderly. So I was concerned that something, I was just making sure she was okay because I haven't seen her the last few nights. My mom was like, that sounds like my mom, but my mom died a year ago. The gas station clerk becomes super apologetic, and she's like, I am so sorry. I do not know what to say. All I know is that lady is always with you, and she just hasn't been for the last few nights. So I just wanted to ask and make sure she was okay. I am so sorry. I hope I did not offend you. I didn't mean to freak you out. But there is definitely a lady that comes in with you most nights. And my mom's like, okay, like, definitely freaked out a little bit. She's like, I am usually in here by myself. But if it's my mom that's kind of, hitching a ride, whatever, it's okay. And already, as she's telling me this, I'm super freaked out. Like, full goosebumps. I'm like, what the f-? I have seen my grandma's ghost a couple of times in the house before, and weird things have happened. So I'm completely like, holy f-. She actually just appeared somewhere. But it doesn't end there. Apparently, the next few nights as my mom goes to the gas station, that lady's not working. I'm assuming it's her days off. So my mom doesn't really get to follow up with her. The night before she's telling me this, though, this was the next time that she saw her, and this is why she decided to tell me about what had happened. Apparently, the night before when she went in, the lady tells my mom, she's like, hey, after you left that night, things got really weird at the gas station. It's obviously very late. I was in there a lot by myself, and as the night went on, I kept hearing someone talking to me, and the voice was kind of a low, like raspy, whispery voice. I could not make out what it was saying, but it freaked me out. And I called my husband. He told me it's probably just late. I'm probably just freaked out from the interaction between me and you. So he just told me just to hang out. He would come and get me when my shift was over, and we'd go home. She's like, so we went home, whatever. Go to sleep. Everything's fine. She said the next day we're hanging out in our living room, and it's the two of us, me and my husband, and we both hear the voice. So whatever it was that I had, like, the lady tells my mom, me and my husband both hear this voice, and it freaks us both out. And I told him, I was like, this is what I heard in the store. Somebody is trying to tell me something, and I have to tell this lady, because whatever it is followed me home, and it's trying to get your attention, because she showed herself to me, she tried to talk to me, and she's trying to talk to me at my house. Like, it's followed me here to my house. And even the way she described the voice to my mom was like, that's my mom's voice, because at the end of my grandma's life, she had dementia, and she couldn't project her voice very loud. It was very raspy. It was very, like, she mumbled a lot. And so my mom was like, she is trying to tell me something. We just don't know what she's trying to tell me. And again, I'm totally immersed in this story she's telling me, because I believe in this. Always believed in this. And I was like, she is for real trying to get our attention. And at the time, we didn't know what she was trying to get our attention for. Not too much time passes, and my mom ends up in the hospital. And my mom gets diagnosed with lung disease, and turns out she was very sick, and she had no clue. So with all of that happening right before she found out she was sick, we all fully believed that my grandma was trying to get my mom's attention to let her know that something was wrong and she needed to be, like, on alert. And again, story does not stop there. A couple of years go by, I'm invited out to a pool party by some friends, and we are all teenagers swimming in the dark, and we're like, let's tell scary ghost stories. I tell them the story I just told you guys, and one of the guys who's there, the guy whose house we're at, he's like, by any chance was this at this gas station? And I'm like, yeah. How did you know? Because I didn't mention it. And he said, well, because the clerk who was talking to your mom was my mom. And my mom told us this story from her perspective, and it has always freaked her the f-. It has stuck with her for a very long time. I was like, what? Because we had no clue. He had no clue who my mom was. I had no clue who his mom was. Then he looks at me and he's like, so your grandma followed my mom to this house where you're at right now. This is the house where all of that happened. And I, by some chance, end up at this house telling this story about my grandma. And it just so happens to be the house where they showed up at. Insidious. Everything came full circle. I literally, in that moment, was just, like, overcome with this, like, crazy feeling of, like, oh, she's here. Like, she's been here. She's at this place that I've never come to, and she's affected these people's lives. And somehow we met in the middle where all of this chaos had ensued because she showed up at the gas station one night, which is very typical of her. So I literally, in the moment, out loud, I was like, hey, Grandma, I know you're probably here. And so it was the craziest thing that's probably ever happened. She's shown herself several times. I have several ghost stories about my grandma. It doesn't freak me out. Like, it freaks you out because the awareness that it's happening, but it never has, like, scared me. It's just the awareness that she totally is still on this plane from time to time and just likes to pull little pranks and also sometimes warn us about impending danger.
I do think that whatever spirit or spirits that I've had experiences with, I do think that they're kind of more like mimics because they would copy like jokes we played on each other, the way we would say things, like we would hear voices that sounded exactly like my dad or my sister, and it wasn't them. So this particular day, I was down in my bedroom, so same bedroom that I had the door beads. This time, there are there are no door beads on my room anymore. I took those off. And my sister Tiara was with me. She was helping me redecorate my room. And as I was hanging up the curtains, her and I both heard a woman's voice call out to us and say, "Hello." And her and I were the only ones home, but I was waiting for my friend Kayla to come over. And it sounded just like her. It sounded exactly like her. And so we both called back, "Hello, we're downstairs." And we hear another "hello" call out. So we're like, "Hi, we're downstairs." And Tira was just like, "It sounds like Kayla's here." And I'm like, "Yeah, she's coming over." So I was like, "I'll just call her," because we just thought she just couldn't hear us. So I called her on her cell phone and I said, "Hey girl, I'm just downstairs in my bedroom. Feel free to just come on down." And she's just like, "Oh, well, I'm not there yet. I'm still at my house." And we were both like, "What? We swear we just heard you call out to us." So I hung up with her. We went and we walked around the whole house. Nobody else was home. So Tira was like, "That was weird." And we were both like, "We definitely heard that." And so then I went back downstairs to finish working on my room. And I heard, like, I had bags of clothes that I was donating in the hallway in a pile. And I heard one of the bags fall off. So I walked to the hallway to look at the bags. And as I looked at the bags, my eyes were like, my eyesight was down. And from the corner of my eye, I saw a set of legs sidestep into the bedroom next to mine. And so I was like, "Hello?" And I walked in there and turned on the light, and there was nobody in there.
So I was babysitting for the first time this little girl. She's 3 years old. And it was going to be at night because her mom works nights. So I'd be with her till like 2 a.m. And her mom told me, she's not sleeping lately. I don't know what's going on. She won't go in her room. She won't lay down. Whatever you need to do to get her to sleep, just try. I said, all right, we'll figure it out. So it was late and there was no sign of her wanting to go in her room. I said, let's go lay down in your room. You know, it was 11. I think 11:30. So let's go lay down in your room. She goes, no. I said, why? And she goes, the baby's crying. And I said, I have no idea. You know, I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe it was like a TV show she was talking about. And I said, no, let's go lay down in your room. So we went in her room and she goes, the baby's crying. And so at this point, I'm like, what baby? What baby? And she pointed up to the ceiling, at the corner of the ceiling. And she said, right there. He's crying. He's sad. She said, I don't want him to cry. And I was like, I am freaked out. So first thing that happened. And I said, okay, let's leave. Let's go to your mom's room. So we went to her mom's room. And she said, the tall man's in here. And I, full body goosebumps. I said, what tall man? Where? And she pointed to her closet and she goes, he lives there. Tall man. And I said, we're not staying in here. We're going into the living room. So we sat down in the living room and there's a couch. Behind me is a big window. So I think I had the news on. I don't know what I was watching. She's sitting there and she stood up and looked behind me and screamed. She screamed. And I was so like, I thought someone was outside. So I looked. I swear to God, I saw the tallest shadow It was like a shadow figure, tall. And it looked like it just swooped past the window. And it looked like he was wearing a wide brimmed hat. And I was so freaked out. And she said, Hat Man. As soon as it happened, Hat Man, Hat Man, Hat. And my instinct is to run outside, but I stayed outside. So I didn't run outside. And so I honestly think I just stayed in the kitchen. I was like in the kitchen. And I was like, your mom's going to be home soon. I'm just going to stay here, okay? And the mom got home and I was like, yeah, she's not sleeping. I got to go. I was so scared. So scared. I never went back. They never asked me to come back. I never went back, and they moved shortly after. We lost contact, so I don't know how they're doing. I hope they're okay. But that was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. Talking about it now gives me tears in my eyes because it just freaks me out.
Preface by saying this isn't actually my story, but I am involved. Shadow Man isn't after me, and I hope he never is. But anyways, I'll go ahead and get into it. Friend Susie, and I don't think she would mind that I'm name dropping her, so if you do, I'm sorry, Sue. Throughout her childhood and teen years, she told me that she would always hear somebody whistling when she was alone. She would always smell cigarettes burning, when nobody was around. She wasn't just hearing things because sometimes she would have friends with her and they would also hear the whistle. When I first became friends with her, she was telling me a story about how her and her friend was driving down the road and in the back seat, they heard somebody whistling. We live in the Appalachian Mountains, and when me and Susie first became friends, she told me a story about how when she was riding around after dark one time with her friend in the passenger seat, they heard somebody whistling coming from the back seat. Now, nobody was in the back seat. There wasn't anybody there. They stopped the car, they got out, they were scared to death. Nobody was hiding in the back seat. There was nobody there. There was no explanation for the whistling. She always felt like she was being watched and followed and just kept hearing this strange whistle. Fast forward, and Susie goes to see a psychic. This psychic told Susie that she was never alone, that she was always being followed by this shadow man in a top hat. He told her, he's here now. He's over there in the corner watching you. And the psychic says he's smoking a cigarette. Remember I said she always smelled cigarettes when nobody was around? Fast forward even further, me and Susie live right beside each other, actually above and below each other. I lived directly beneath her, so I could hear everything that was going on in her apartment at all times. Anytime Susie left her apartment, you could hear people running up and down the hallways, slamming doors. One day we were sitting in the living room of her apartment, sitting on the couch. You hear the whistle that she always hears. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a shadow running in her hallway. The whistling and the shadow man may not actually be connected. I 100% believe that psychic because there was definitely something that was following Susie around, and it probably still is to this day.
I'm going to tell you about one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. So a little backstory is my siblings and I grew up in a haunted house. There were 5 of us kids and then our parents. So there were 7 people living in one house. And it wasn't the happiest place to grow up. I think that contributed a lot to the fear and to the feeding the negative energy. So oftentimes we would experience things together. So we would see objects get thrown across the room, or we would see a ball of light manifest in the middle of the room and float through a wall, things like that. But this is an experience that happened to me when I was alone. And so it's harder for me to share stories like that because I don't have the validation of my siblings saying, oh yeah, I remember that, but this happened to just me. So on this particular day, my family was going to the store and I decided that I wanted to stay at home and probably watch Jersey Shore or something like that. So I was in the living room by myself, and the living room usually felt pretty safe. And I think that my siblings would agree that the scariest place in the house was the hallway, which I'll put a video or a picture in here to show you what I'm talking about. But all of our bedrooms were back in the hallway. And from my bedroom, I heard a voice and it said, Brianna, get back here. And I froze. And the first thing I thought was, there's no way that was real. That was me hearing voices. Cool. And then a second later, again, I hear, Brianna, get back here. And I ran outside, and luckily my family hadn't left yet. And I jumped in the car and I said, I'm going to the store with you. And I ask them over and over again, was there somebody inside? Was there somebody inside? And there was only one door to get in at that time. It's been kind of renovated since, but at that time there was one way to get in, and everybody was in the car. So yeah, I don't know what that was. It scared me. It scared the shit out of me. And not long after that, I was laying in my bed one night, and from my closet, I heard a growling, and I froze, and I started crying, and eventually I got the courage to go past my closet and run out the door of my bedroom, but I was petrified, truly petrified. And after that, I just slept in the living room for months, probably years. I couldn't sleep in my bedroom anymore. I was too scared.
On Bunner's Ridge near Morgantown, there's an area called Rose Run, and the name came from all the wild roses that used to cover the valley. The farmers in this area were well-to-do, and one of the most wealthy farmers in the area had a beautiful daughter named Rose. Against her father's wishes, Rose fell in love with a city boy. One night while they were at a dance together, her father decided to take a shot at the city boy, but he missed, and it got his beautiful daughter. Her father swore that the city boy was the one that was responsible for this tragedy, and of course all the other farmers in the area believed him, so they did the city boy in. The angry and bitter father buried his daughter in a remote area of his farm. Soon, from her grave sprang a multitude of wild roses that seemed to spread like wildfire. They choked out the very sunlight from the soil. And in a short time, the whole farm, as well as the valley, was covered. The roses are gone now, but that's how the Rose Run area got its name.
If you made it this far, thank you for exploring the paranormal side of Appalachia with me. These mountains host centuries of secrets, and we're only scratching the surface. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the strange, the unexpected, and the terrifying. And as always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.